McGrath. Unfortunately, there's no substitute for him either. So we will be 8 committee members this evening rather than the usual 10. Moving on to item 2, declarations of pecuniary interest. Are there any such declarations, please? No, you can't hear me? Is that better? Thank you. So declarations of pecuniary interest, none are declared. So we move on to agenda item 3, the minutes of the last meeting. Are any members dissenting from the minutes of the last meeting? Are they approved? Thank you very much. Minutes approved. Let me explain the process that we go through here for those who are new to the Planning Application Committee. Each application is first presented by a planning officer. There is then the opportunities for objectors to speak. Each objector, and there can be up to 2 objectors, may speak for 3 minutes. The applicant then has a right of reply and can speak for the same length of time. So one objector, the applicant speaks for 3 minutes. If there are 2 objectors, the applicant can speak for 6 minutes. Ward councillors then speak and they get 3 minutes each. And then the planning officer who presented can make further comments on the basis of what was raised. After the planning officer has finished, members of the committee, and it's members of the committee only, may ask questions. Committee members then comment as they see fit. And then finally, we move to the vote. And the vote is to either approve the recommendation of the officer, reject the recommendation of the officer, or rarely to defer the application to a subsequent meeting. When people are speaking in the chamber, this traffic light will light up, green to start. When there is 1 minute left, it will turn to amber. And when it comes to red, please stop speaking. Those who are on Zoom and speaking will receive a 1 minute warning verbally. Now, in terms of the order of the applications tonight, we will take them in the order presented, except for number 7, Common Side East Mitcham. As there are no speakers for that item, we will take that last. So we start off with item number 5, the land to the rear of Cannon Hill Lane. Is the officer presenting ready? Okay. That's Jordan Alexander, who will present this. Are you there, Jordan?
I am here. Can you see my screen? Just to check before I start. Should be presenting. Hello, can I check if everyone can see my screen that I'm presenting at the moment? Should have the slide up of the site plan. Yes.
Jordan, I can hear you, but I don't think the rest of the council chamber can.
We do seem to still be having a little problem with the technology.
Right.
Jordan is zooming in.
Yeah, so I'm trying to.
He isn't.
Yes, well, I am talking. I hope others can hear me, but I'm trying to share my screen as well. It should be sharing in terms of the way you do it on Zoom. So it'd be unusual why it wouldn't be coming up now.
I can see it clearly.
Yeah, Jordan, it's on mine, but it's not on the
okay.
It's not on the monitors in the council chamber.
Okay.
No, you're okay. You're on.
Okay, so I'll start then. Okay. All right. Well, good evening. So the site that you have before you is land to the rear of 274 to 320 Common Hill Lane, and the site also includes access, as you can see, here, and that's between the houses of 318 and 320 and properties 322, 324. In terms of the site, it's kind of somewhat of an unusual site, and that is very kind of quite long. It's about 100 meters in length, and I can scroll down because we have a really nice aerial of the land here. So this is the site where, as I move my cursor along, it finishes around here and it comes back across here. Along to the north, there's of Commonside Hill. There's masonette houses, they're all 2-story, with gardens to the rear. And then you've got the access to the back of land site. And then to the west of that, you've got Little Forest Folks Nursery. So they've got the nursery in here, and then the nursery also has a drop-off area and car parking for students. To the north of the site, you can see that there's the All England Tennis Club. So they've got external courts, as well as this big building here is an internal tennis court. And then this land here is not owned by the applicant, but I think it's owned by the tennis courts as well. So it kind of provider, and then kind of the residential houses, other quieter uses across here. In terms of the proposal on site, the applicant proposes to build 2 houses, so one here, another one here. The larger house, which is here, would be 4 bedrooms, and the other house is 2 bedrooms. And you can see the kind of arrange the site around some of the different trees that are established on the site that have got is between 2 to 3 cars to park, as well as parking and refuge storage around here. In terms of the design or the floor plans, it's quite a conventional design. You've got living quarters on the ground floor, and then at first floor level, you've got bedrooms, garden spaces as well, like Sierra Road and policy client levels. This is the kind of the design, the elevations of the houses. Both are quite very similar in terms of their style. So it's kind of a modular design with timber paneling used. They've got windows on all elevations, solar panels to the roofs. The idea being that they're going to be kind of a sustainable, low energy homes that they're delivering, as well as different kind of recessed paneling as well. And that's south view. So this is the view that we're facing masonette properties along Cannon Hill Lane, and that's the north. So that's facing towards the tennis court. This is another kind of illustrated layout of the houses, and you can see that they're providing housing around kind of some of the larger trees that are established on the site. And also proposing kind of new landscaping along the southern edge. And that's an artist's kind of view or design of hopefully the houses once they've been built. In terms of the site at the moment, it's completely undeveloped. There's no housing or other houses present. The only thing that kind of circles the site is this boundary fencing. You can see that on the site, it's lots of grass. You've got various kind of shrubs and weeds, and then you've got kind of larger established trees, as well as smaller trees. So that's the entry point to the site, looking west. That's looking north, and you can see the tennis court building in the background. That's looking westward. So across, looking kind of 100 meters beyond, and you can see all the kind of some of the trees in the background. That's looking from the site towards the masonette houses, and that's the entry point into the site. So you've got the TPO tree at the front, you've got the applicants' access gates. Down here where my cursor is, that's the parking and drop-off area for the nursery. And that photograph there shows the entry point into the site from Cannon Hill Lane, and that's shared, as I said, with the nursery. In terms of kind of planning considerations, bring back over the site plan. the houses are about 23 meters distance from the houses along Cannon Hall Lane. So in terms of planning term, the council usually looks for about 18 meters as the minimum in terms of providing enough privacy. It's north of the houses as well along here, so we don't think it's going to create any kind of sense of enclosure or lots of light. As on top of that, it's kind of been arranged in terms of the houses around the larger established TPOs. So they're not proposing to remove any TPO trees during the build. They've also provided a transport assessment as well that looks at kind of the impact along this kind of access way, given that it's also shared with the nursery. The results from that show that because there's only 2 or 3 cars proposed at the site, the level of kind of movements is going to be pretty small. The biggest consideration for the site in terms of planning is the fact that the whole of the site is designated open space. So of course, normally the council sort of resists any building on open space, but there are policies in play, and I've tried to kind of measure them out within our report that provide exemptions. And some of those exemptions that are there is when the space that's there is considered kind of redundant or doesn't really meet our policies or our criteria for being open space anymore. And within that, and the background to that is the council was recently done for the new local plan that's going to be adopted relatively soon. There's been a kind of an open space assessment that's been brought in. Council's commissioned and paid for that to happen, and the findings of that report and are kind of articulated within 2.5 of my report. That shows that the space is kind of considered septic requirement, and therefore their recommendation is to remove it. So the council's recommendation is to remove it as an open space, and that report's been kind of given to our policy officers that I've looked to that confirm that that's appropriate, and that's fed into the new local plan that's been brought forward for examination to the planning inspectorate. So their view is that this should be kind of dropped off from the open space designation as this site. So with that in mind, we think residential is appropriate kind of development to take place on the back of land site. I think you would also note that the council's recommendation is to refuse the application and not approve the application. And that's because the reason, or the main reason for refusal, kind of goes against all the objections that we're getting from neighbours towards the scheme. So most of the neighbours don't want any development to take place. But we're saying that development potentially is acceptable, but we're concerned about our reason to refuse the scheme is because we don't think the applicant's optimising the site. So the planning guidance that we use, as well as the London Plan guidance, talks about kind of optimising site, using sites efficiently, and doing a design-led approach to all development, where you kind of look at the site and then you make sure that whatever you're delivering, you optimize it, and you make sure that everything's sensibly configured and arranged, considering the constraints on the site. And we're not sure, well, our concern is that there's only 2 houses that are getting delivered on a site where there's potentially more that could be delivered. And we're concerned that the nature and the way that it's being planned at the moment might constrain and kind of remove and create barriers for future development taking place. So because that, our main reason for refusal is because the applicant has failed to demonstrate that they've optimized the building out of the site. There's 2 other reasons for refusal as well. There's one, because they haven't provided a tree report, an arboricultural tree assessment that looks at the impact on some of the trees, like the TPO trees, from the works, where the construction work or actually building on the site. And there's another refusal reason as well, is because the refuge distance to the main road is about 40 to 45 meters, which is considered kind of unreasonable for occupiers to have to do to take out their refuge. So the applicant would need to kind of consider alternative refuge arrangements or different strategies to make this work. So they haven't provided that in this application. That's why it forms another reason for refusal. So that's my presentation, but I'm sure if you've got any questions, then I'm happy to help out.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. So we now move to the objectors who wish to speak. I'll take objectors in the order in which they appear on my sheet. Is Mr. Guy Weston in the chamber?
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. We've collected 113 signatures in a petition to object to the proposal, 55 from residents and the rest from parents using the nursery, the play area of which the applicant proposes to use as a driveway to the spaces for 3 cars on his site. And we managed to gather a few more since yesterday's deadline for submission of evidence. And of those contacted, only 1 resident did not object, who is a personal friend of the applicant, and there was 1 abstention. The digital images of the signed sheets were sent to committee members on Wednesday by James Weston, who lives with me, and Paula from 318 Cannon Hill Lane has the hard copies and is present in the public gallery tonight. Regarding the open space status of the land, the applicant applied to have this removed in 2020, and residents have not been notified of any possible change of status prior to this application, which obviously lacks transparency. And the site is visually accessible from north and south, and I can attest to this as I spend 60 hours a week at my desk with a view of the land from my home office window. And I've seen many species of birds, including great spotted woodpeckers on the site in 2021. I can hear an owl at night and bats forage on summer nights over the site. So the land provides an important ecological route from St Catherine's Field towards Cannon Hill Common. And the development would mean the loss of 2,315 square metres of designated open space without any replacement. There is a restrictive covenant on the land behind 308 to 312 preventing development, and the freeholders' legal departments have been informed of this application. And I've worked in London residential property consultancy research for over 15 years, and I've never seen a development proposal with on-site car parking provision with such poor connectivity to the public highway as the one under consideration. And the 2020 application referred to a lorry that had been left on the land, which was itself left there by a previous applicant for residential development. And it was an eyesore for 2 decades, illustrating the careless attitude of developers to sites once its value is lost to them. And as previously mentioned, no arboricultural impact assessment was submitted to demonstrate no potential harm to other trees in the area, which is key in considering the application. And the TPOs did not appear to be fully addressed. The land's partially in flood risk zone 2, and there has been significant groundwater in gardens from 312 to 308 with recent heavy rainfall, and Cannon Hill Lane itself flooded in the summer for the first time. And the application is not in keeping with the surrounding area design or layout. And if any subsequent application for higher residential provision is made, local residents' opposition will only intensify. And we've seen the impact of planning issues on local democracy in the recent Amersham by-election, where that led to the Conservative MP being removed and a Lib Dem elected. And we've also seen the local opposition in Wimbledon Park with 10,000 signatures to a petition there. So local opposition is very strong and united against this proposal.
Minister.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weston. The other objector wishing to speak